Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and it's sure a pleasure to be up here in Ontario. Jason did make one mistake there. He said there was 4 great speakers. There's 3 and one very nervous one, unless you put a group of cows in front of me. I'm more comfortable. But it's sure a pleasure to be up here to talk to you guys. What I'm going to talk about a little bit is the way we care for things at home and cow care and the way it works to performance and longevity with your cows. For me, it's I guess it works in our situation, and what I'm talking about is what works in our situation, not in every situation. We like to wake up in the morning and walk in and look at a really nice group of cows and keep them nice, and that's what we specialize in. So I'm very fortunate. I'm married to Kathy Beerward, and we have 3 daughters, Tara, Brooke, and Lana. And for all you know that my wife, she's a big part of it, and my kids too. And my wife does the milking, and she loves to milk those cows, and she likes to take care of them. And she grew up with the same feelings I had. My dad always kind of taught me what to do, and her dad taught her a lot. So we really enjoyed working at home with the kids on the farm. Also, I'm lucky I have a daughter that does a bit of photography, so it makes my PowerPoint pictures, some are professional done and some are her pictures, so it's kind of nice for me. She made some nice pictures throughout the last couple of years. That's actually a picture of Jane Summer. She just went 96 the other day, or a month ago or so, and that was a picture my daughter had done a couple summers ago. That's actually the from the house, the view we get. It was a little hazy that day, but that cow was just standing off the porch of her house, so we're quite a high up on a hill there. We milk approximately 30 cows. When we built the barn, we built it for 30, and everyone said, well, why didn't you make it for 50 or more? And for me, we like to do it without a lot of help, so 30 is what we can take really good care of as far as the milk cows go. And our barn's at the edge of the mountain. We can't go any farther, so it's a good reason not to expand on the milk barn, I guess. We do keep 200 head total, about 160 that are, some are show heifers, some are recipients, some are genomic heifers, just a variation of everything. So it doesn't take somebody really good in math to figure that 30 cows isn't going to support 160. So we need to do a lot of marketing on embryos or livestock to make things pay, and that's why we like to specialize and take good care of those cows, because that's what makes it pay at the end of the day. These are just some photos of just our entrance to our farm and looking down from our house to the barn here. We show it about, I guess we go to about 7 shows now per year. We used to do more. We try to hit the major shows and go to support our county show, and try to bring a string to Madison and a string to the Royal. And we also milk jerseys, like you heard the little brown cows. We have 8 stalls that are just for the Jersey cows at home, and sometimes if we don't have 8, the Holsteins stand in those stalls quite well too. So, but we do milk 8 jerseys all the time. I grew up with jerseys and kind of always have had them, and we have really good success with them. This is just a neat picture Vicki took. That was a 2-year-old that was All-American, All-Canadian a couple years ago. She went 89, and she walked up those steps onto the porch so we could take the picture off her house, and it was kind of a neat picture. Same with Spirit Cow. She walked right up those steps and turned around. So this is just a picture of the town where we live. We took the cow, Jane Summer, down into the town and took a picture of her down there. I'm fortunate. I've been able to go to 28 different countries around the world judging, and I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for my wife and kids. They fill in when I'm gone, and we don't have a lot of help. We have a Japanese trainee, thanks to Mark Butts. He gets me a Japanese, and Bruce Smith used to get me a Japanese boy every year. And they're great guys, and they're really dedicated. So we try to do it with one helper ourselves. Our herd average is And the Holsteins were running at about, Jerseys and Holsteins are right in the 260s, 250s, 260s all the time, BCA right across the board. So cows perform well. Maybe the way I feed the cows, because they're fed more towards worrying about keeping them in show shape, maybe my cows won't peak as high at the start, but at the end of their lactation they're given about the same as they did on the start. So they just maintain a really good record all the way through. Several factors, take several things to achieve the quality of cows you want, and to me, good help makes good cows. You got help around that is good, it helps a lot. And these are two Japanese boys that we had. One was there for a couple months while the other one was getting ready to leave. And dedication to your goals. You got to be really dedicated if you want to do well, and you got to use good genetics that suits your goals. Environment and handling of cows and heifers. In our situation, when we started, we only had the cow barn, and so we built a couple dome buildings, and that's where our heifers and our recipients and our show heifers, they're actually housed in domes, and everything has access to going outside in the winter. And this is just a shot my daughter took. They run out after a big storm, and for me, exercise is hard to beat. In our situation at home, to have those cows in good shape all the time, that's one thing I'd like to change. I'm not able to turn the cows out in the wintertime at home. They're in that barn because we're up on a hill and there's too much wind and too much ice to get the cows out of my barn in the winter. So they're tied up all winter. But everything else we have is out moving around. And to me, that's a big thing, at least when they're dry. And that in my situation, I like to get them out moving around. You got to realize that if you're showing cows like we do, those cows got to have good legs. So for me, that's a big part of keeping the legs right, keeping them in shape. The other thing that I'm real picky about is the manner in which we work with them. I don't like anybody that's helping me to be rough with those cows. We try to take care of them. They're kind of like family to us, so we try to take good care of the cows all the time. This is a cow that's in the barn in the box stall right now. It's September cheese. That was taken about a month and a half ago, I guess. She's given about still right around 60 kilos a day and calved last September, and she's done really well for us. Still looks good. We're just setting her up right now in a flush program, and we want to get some calves out of her, but she's a cow that has really performed well for us. These are actually two cows that we sold, or one cow we sold last year. That's a Weeksdale Goldwyn Dakota, was in her box stall, and the other cow's a lovable Elmbridge lovable red cow that she's on flush program right now. This is my daughter with her jersey at the show. She, like I was talking, to me, you got to work nice with those cattle, and there's none of our cattle you can't go in and lay down right beside them and work around them, and that's a big part of it. So my girls, they're always playing with the calves or working with the animals, and that makes a big difference. And in our situation with only 30 cows, we're able to do that. We're working with those cows every day. For me, important thing is the calf raising. We didn't used to, it never used to be a big deal at our place, but now with all the flushing and the in vitro work and all the ET work, sometimes you get 25, 30 calves around in a small place. That's a lot of calves. So we went to housing them in the dome building in these pens, and boy, it works well. It really, really works well. And to me, the secret to good cows starts with your calves. And if you start them off good and you keep them from getting sick and you get them growing good, that's the biggest secret. If they're stunted at a young age, it's hard to catch up. And so that's where I'm really picky about that at home on the young calves. Those first 3 months to me is extremely important. And to keep them healthy and clean and growing good. So we prefer them in a cold environment than a warm environment, and they do really well. In the summer, we actually have them in the same system, but we have fans that are above them, and so there's always good air going through. The only problem we do have is we get some flies, but I don't know any farms that don't have that trouble in the summertime. So. I guess something to me, it's real important. If you want cows to last and perform well, low stress. Cows that aren't stressed do a lot better. And a lot of people say, well, what's involved with the stress? Well, I think it all goes back to handling them right. If you're handling them good, cows aren't stressed. You're walking beside them, they're happy to have you around. Not everyone, I mean, there's some cows, some of these gold ones will test you, and some of the Jaspers, but with time they all seem to calm down, and so I'm a big believer. I love to go in the barn in the middle of the day and see all those cows laying down making milk, and to me, stress is a big thing. You don't stress them if you don't have to. That helps a lot. Cleanliness, that isn't so much to making them last, but in some ways it is actually. If they're nice and clean in your place, you keep it well presented, you got a lot less troubles with high somatic cell count and mastitis. We're pretty happy. Actually, my wife's at a meeting in Quebec today receiving an award for one of the 10 best somatic and bacteria counts in the province last year. So we never had one milk check was over 100,000, and bacteria was low on every one. So we take a pride in trying to keep those cows nice and clean and keep everything good that way. Environment, a clean cow performs better as far as the environment. You got less disease, you got less problems. Not everybody can do that. It's every situation's different, and like I said, our situation it works okay because between my wife and I and the one help, we can keep those 30 cows pretty well looking like that every day. And for us to do it like that every day is just part of chores. And it's not a big deal to do it because we do it, wash the tails and clean them up, and so that it's not a big job when we do have visitors come in. And I do get a lot of visitors. I wonder why sometimes, living up on a hill where we do in the back of nowhere, but it seems like every day of the year we have somebody come in. And it's not always cow people, but we do get visitors. Just a neat story. A couple of years ago I was judging, I think it was in Brazil, and I came home and my daughter said, Dad, you won't believe who we had up here to visit today, coming to see the fireman. I said, who? And she says, Johnny Depp. I said, Johnny Depp? Who's Johnny Depp? And that shows how much I do. And this is back when the first Pirates of the Caribbean movies were on, and apparently he was doing a movie in town on the lake, and he came up with the mayor and the RCMP, and they brought him up to see the view from our house. So my daughters all got to hug Johnny Depp and shake his hand, and they were all excited to get his signature. So they were all excited about that. So, and then another time I was out working on the lawn, and a car drove in, and out gets this kind of distinguished looking fella and his wife and a little poodle, and it was a Prime Minister of France, Jean Chirac. He was in town with his wife and brings his little dog everywhere, and they were on a vacation in North Alley where we live, and he came up to see the view, and I thought it was kind of funny because that's when the country was all on fire. When all the fires are going on, he was over vacationing in our town. It seemed kind of strange, but anyway, we got to meet him. So it's not always cow guys you get in. You get all sorts of visitors in our situation where we live. So that's why we kind of have to keep it this way, just because it's not just farmers coming. It's city people that just want to see the place. Something that's, to me, is really important. If you want cows to last and you're in a tie stall, and I think it probably works the same for a free stall, you gotta have the right stalls. And for my situation, I use straws bedding with the little shavings, but I guess I'm old fashioned. I got a system from probably 50 years ago or more. I got a bedding keeper under those cows, and it's a pipe, but my bedding keeper doesn't show. It's a pack. Actually, when we started the farm, we built the barn. The fellows who sell antimatter are good friends of mine, and they came in and the stalls are all ready, and they said, there, we'll sell you all the mats. And I said, well, no, I'm going to go with the old bedding keeper under them, but I'll put mats where they walk on the floor. And the guy told me, it's never going to work. Your cow's legs are going to be terrible. You need the mats. And I said, no, I'm going to go this way. So I went out and I found a manure pile down the road that was 8 years old. And I hauled in load after load, and I filled those stalls, and I packed it down and covered it in lime and some shavings. And guy stood there while I was doing it. He was there the whole time trying to sell me mats. And he says, what are you doing? You're going to ruin your cows. And anyway, he come back 2 years later, and that's still in the stalls. I mean, that dried out, and it's a great pack for those cows. And it stays dry. We add a little fresh straw every day. I don't have one hock in the barn that even has a blemish on it. Every cow's hock is good. And to me, showing cows, that's a secret to doing well. If you can keep those cows' hocks and legs in order, you've got 50% of it right there. Because a lot of times troubles start in the legs. Especially these 2-year-olds that calve in, struggle to get up. And I'm not running down rubber mats. I mean, I've had anti-mat and mats are fine if you keep some bedding on them too. But if they're going to scar up their hocks, it's going to be from that. And so I keep a pack under them, and we never have a leg issue. We never have an animal that has trouble to get up. And my heifers aren't tied as calves, but they come right in as milk cows, and they don't have any troubles at all because I have that pack under them. So that's, to me, anybody who's working with cows that want to show and have the cows last, that's important. Summer on the end there, she's going to be 9 soon. And the second cow, that's Lee Rocket. She calved in at 10 years old there, and she was fresh a month there. So, and those cows get along great. They don't have to have box stalls. I only have 3 box stalls in the barn. And I do like box stalls. I love box stalls, but boy, they're a lot of work. And to me, there's certain cows that are made for box stalls, and there's certain cows that are made to be tied up. And I've had cows, I'll put them in a box stall, and they won't perform at all because they don't have the competition. Take the same cow and tie her up, she does 100% better. And that cow tied beside her just seems to be competition. So in a tie stall situation, I personally don't have a lot of box stalls, and I feel that I don't need a lot of box stalls because of my bedding pack. Plus the other thing that I guess now I better touch wood, I'll jinx myself, but in the 10 years we've never had a stepped on teat in the barn. We've never had one hurt their quarter teat tied up, not one. And I think that's due to the bedding. And sure, it's a little bit of work every day to add half a big bale of straw under them all, but you know, if you're not having troubles with the cows and having to get the vet for this and that, it pays for itself. The other thing I'm kind of a stickler on is hoof care. If you want cows to last, they gotta have good hoof care. And I know this is standard stuff, but it starts from a baby calf. If they get their feet growing out so bad, and so we get our show cows trimmed 4 times a year, and all the herd's done twice a year. And right now they're needing it. Of course, standing in the tie stall, in the barn, in the pack, the feet grow. So in the spring we like to get them done a good month before they hit pasture, because so they're not too stiff when they go out. And we find that that's a big thing. Stress and hoof care to me is a big thing. The guys that do it by hand, oh, it's great, but there's not that many of those guys around like Hank used to do and those guys anymore. So a lot of guys have gone to the machines so they can do a lot in the day. And we had the tilt table, guy with the tilt table. It worked good. We did have a cow hurt her shoulder one time on it. And my guy that does my feed for the last 30 years, he has this kind of rig, and boy, is that ever nice for the cows. They walk in, they go straight up, they don't tip, they don't do anything, they don't even fight. Some of the cows are even chewing their cud while trimming their feet. It's amazing. And so that's, to me, good hoof care is really, really important, as well as controlling the strawberry foot rot, or Italian foot rot, whatever, all different names to it. But I don't care what anyone says, everybody has it, because I think that's the kind of foot rot now that you basically, my hoof trimmer says you can't get rid of it, you can control it. Once it's in your herd, you can control it, but you can't basically get rid of it. It's going to show up here and there on the cows. So we just work hard to control it. And that's one thing that will make a cow perform bad if they got a bad foot. And trimming feet, if you don't know what you're doing, better to get somebody who knows what they're doing. You can do more damage by trying to do a cow that you think you know what you're doing and you don't, than if you get a professional in that knows what they're doing. That's my experience. I've trimmed feet before too, and I wished I've had the guy who knew what he was doing in to do it, because I kind of made it worse. So a lot of these farmers nowadays are really good hoof trimmers because of the big setups and the big freestalls you got to be. And so that it's important to even take a course on that, to know exactly what you're doing. I guess the other thing for me that is so important is consistency. You got to be consistent. Cows like consistency, and it's hard. You got kids, and you got this, and you got running here to everything going on, but you got to try to be consistent. And my father was a real stickler on this. He was Scottish, and he really was. Boy, we had to have those milkers on at 5 in the morning, and it wasn't 5 after or 5 before. It had to be at 5 o'clock. So we tried to stay on the same. At home, we try to get the milkers on at 5:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon, and we try to stay consistent with it. I mean, we might veer 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but the big thing is to try to be consistent. Those cows that are giving 60 kilos a day or more, boy, if you go over an hour on them, they're getting full, and it's a little stress on them. So, same with calves. I've had calf feeders at home, and calves are sick within a day or two because they're not consistent. They're not consistent of the time they feed, or the temperature of the milk, or the milk replacer. So that's, to me, one of the key things is to be consistent, to always try to keep the same program, and those cows will just perform really well for you every day. Feeding and the management, like the feeds. In my situation, because I only milk 30 cows, I can feed good dry hay. There's a man in the back corner that sent me some pretty good loads from Ontario here through the years, and I get some hay down around home too, and good dry hay in my situation works really well. Now if you're milking 500 cows, you can't feed just dry hay, but we do a lot of embryo transplant. We're flushing approximately 4 to 5 flushes a week right now at home on a small herd, and so we get good performance with the dry hay, good quality hay. We did go to baleage one winter, and cows milk great, but boy, our flush results, they deteriorated. They didn't do as well that winter. So for 6 months, I tried them on baleage, and I went up 5 embryos a cow average when I went back on the dry hay. 5 good eggs. We had the number of eggs, we just didn't have as many good quality eggs when we were on the baleage. I like baleage. I feed baleage to the heifers, to the, even to the dry cows get not a rich baleage, but they get baleage too. But the milk cows in the barn, we keep them on the dry hay and the grain. Try to get a lot of fiber in their feed. I've only ever, in 30 years, I've ever had one DA, one twisted stomach. That's all I've ever had. Never had to operate on a twisted stomach except once, and that's because she had twins. So we're lucky that way. We don't have much problems with that. Try to feed that just makes sense, low in toxins. Anybody who knows if you got toxins in your feed, the embryos business isn't going to go as well. It really affects them a lot. My flush vet, he's real picky about that, and he's always checking out my hay when he's in, and he likes flushing at home because he says he gets good results, and that makes him feel good. When he can do well, it makes his performance look better too. So if we can feed them good, and having a good eye to see the body condition of that cow and adjust accordingly to the feed. I mean, all of us are looking at our cows a lot, and just if you see a cow that's got the wrong body condition, adjust her feed. we maybe tend to keep our cows a little more dairy, a little dairier than most farms. Our body score would be a little extreme that way because we are showing them a lot. But I don't do anything special to keep them that way. They just seem to, they stay in that kind of condition. They get their grain 3 times a day, they get beef pulp twice a day, and they get good dry hay and some mineral and a little bit of supplement to the cows who are really milking a lot. So they seem to perform well like that. Now my cows in the summertime are actually on pasture all summer. And I'm lucky that way because in my situation, I'm up on a hill. When we got our farm going, we left a bunch of trees in the fields. So the cows have shade every day. So my cows, I'm a big believer, they're tied up 7 months in that barn. It's my favorite day of the year when I see those cows go to pasture. They tear out of that barn and we milk them out and get them out when the udders are empty and pray there's nothing goes wrong that first 2 hours. If you get through the first 2 hours and nobody's bruised an udder and that, you're happy. And to me, that's a big thing when I get those cows out and they can go out. Now somebody milks 200 cows, it's too hard to get them in every day. But with us, with the 30 cows, we can kick them out, bring them in at night time. And when we get into July and it gets hot, the good show cows go out and they come in at noon. They go into a different field and they come in at noon, get rinsed off. And my cows are spoiled. I'm not scared to admit that. Every cow, in the summer, every animal's washed. Every animal, every milk cow. Not everybody can do that, but we wash every cow as we milk them and kick them back out. So the cows are rinsed down and washed. In the winter, they're washed once a week. They're blown off the blower twice a day, so they're kind of spoiled. And I know that not everybody can do that, but it works in our situation because we get a lot of people in. These jerseys here is not a big row, but I ended up, I think I had 5 All-Canadians, 4 reserves, and 2 honorable mentions last fall. All-Canadian with the jerseys. So we had a really big year with them, and our breeders' herds, both junior and senior, were All-Canadian. So we're pretty proud of that for only milking 8 jerseys. They did really well for us. And, this cow in the end, just an example of taking care of a cow. She calved a year and 11 months the first time. And she was reserve all-Canadian milking yearling. Made about 7,500 kilos as a milking yearling. The next year she calved at 2 years, 10 months as a 2-year-old. She made around 8,500 and she was honorable mention all-Canadian 2-year-old because she didn't show at the Royal. I was judging that year. The next year she calved at 3 years, 9, third calf. Was reserve all-Canadian. And made around 10,000. The next year, then we flushed her for 6 months. She calved with her 4th calf right at 5 years old, and she made 11,600 kilos. She calved last spring with her 5th calf at 6 years old, made 11,000 kilos, and she's having her 6th calf at 7 years old in the summertime. So she's a cow that just performs and breeds back. She's never been bred more than 1 time. She's just a great cow that way. The reproduction's good, and that's my youngest daughter's cow. So we've never showed her. My daughter showed her from a calf on, and she was second mature cow at the Royal last fall. She's 95 points, and so she's part of the family. That one, I guess. I'd never be allowed to sell that cow. She's going to die at the farm, and that's what's going to happen. Is my daughter would disown me if anything else happened to her. So there was a lot of people. Jeff Stevens sold us her as a calf, and then he tried to buy her back at the Royals at milking yearling for my daughter. My daughter being I guess all-Canadian or reserve all-Canadian 4-H with her, and he offered really good money for her. And my daughter said no. He said, "What about 10,000 bubble gums?" He was just trying to talk her into selling her, and she just laughed. And that cow's going to stay at home. She'll always be there. So. And she's bred well. Her daughter was reserve all-Canadian, her honorable mention all-Canadian junior 3 last year. Herd health, well, that's standard. You're going to hear that from your vets, from everybody, and that's something. As farmers now, we all got to have good veterinary skills because we can't really afford every time there's something to have the vet. So at home, I do all my own stuff, just the operations. I don't do. if I got something, I'll pretty well try to take care of it myself. But we got great vets, and they'll come. I'll call the vet quite often, ask him on the phone. He'll tell me what he thinks is wrong. And then I'll treat the cow, and it seems to work well. Sick animals, they stunt, and they don't perform as well. And that's pretty standard. Reproduction is such a key in profitability on the farm. I mean, getting those cows bred back, they need to be bred back. Now ourselves, we do a lot of flushing, so those cows aren't always getting bred right back. Sometimes they're flushed for a year, dry, calve in again. But you know what? I have had no trouble calving in those cows that have been flushed a long time because we watch, we don't get them too fat. And I mean, the second cow there, she was dry for a year and a half, and she was fresh a month in that picture. She was dairy down and rolling right along. So that's a big key. If you're gonna do a lot of flushing, try not to get them too fat. Try to keep them in shape. We get a lot of trouble at home in the summer with pink eye. They get a lot of flies, get a lot of pink eye, and that's a big thing. I think now the tags are good to go in the heifers. We all show guys all hey to make extra holes in the ears, but it's minor, it's nothing, and I think it's probably good to put the tags because we did last summer in some animals, and not one of those had pink eye. The ones we did, quite a few of them got it. So we got to watch for that, and then we get a little bit of foot rot. Of course, the cows go into pasture. If it's raining, they're going to get a little bit of foot rot sometimes. So and then that access to good, clean drinking water. I mean, you want to make sure if your cattle are on pasture that they're able to drink out of a good water source, not something that's going to contaminate them. And then the last thing I think that helps animals, ventilation is so important. I mean, it's important on the calves, it's important on the cows, whatever situation you're in. An animal, I mean, pneumonia will hurt an animal so bad. And I think in the barn, we are on a cross ventilation in the wintertime because our barn's not so long, we're able to do that. The air comes from the attic of the barn and across. And in the summer, we're on the tunnel ventilation. We switch over to tunnel. And but the cows are out most of the day anyway, so chore time the tunnel ventilation helps. But that's for me really important. On the calves, if you can get them in fresh air, get them somewhere where the air is good. Cold is good. Damp is bad. But if it's cold, dry, it's great for the calves. And then, like I said, we rinse our cows sometimes on those hot days. Their tongues are hanging out when they come in, so I'm careful about that. I do rinse the special ones down. Actually, the Jersey cow that I was showing you before on the end, this cow here, she works with a heart that works at 40%. When she was a 3-year-old at Madison, she was not right, and I didn't know what was wrong with her, and she ended up 6th down there at about 60 in the class that year. It was a big class, and I had the vet tour down there, and he said, something wrong, but I don't know what it is. And he said, maybe it's just shipping fever. So he treated her for shipping fever and gave her some bottles, and on the way home in the trailer, she looked like she was going to die. I looked in there and she didn't look good. She was down, her eyes were sunk in her head, and I gave her a couple bottles on the road on the way home, and I noticed she would work really hard when I gave her the bottle, and I was a little worried. I got her home, and she seemed to rebound for a couple days, and I went off to judge a World Conference show in Ireland. And at 4 in the morning, Ireland time, I had a phone call from my youngest daughter, and she was crying. She said, Natasha's going to die. She's swollen between the front legs. And I knew right then it was hardware. When she told me that, it had to be something with hardware. Anyway, the nail had moved to the heart. It had gone through the stomach wall and had moved. And so we took her over to the vet school. And they found this nail that was lodged. And they said there's about 5% chance this cow lived. They said she's full of peritonitis. We're not even going to worry about the nail. She's full of peritonitis. Well, before I went to Ireland, I'd stuck a magnet in the cow because I didn't know if she had one when I bought her as a calf. And anyway, the funny thing is, the nail had come right back, and they said it'd come right back to the same hole that had went through the stomach wall and had lodged back in to to the stomach wall. It traveled back. The magnet had pulled it back through. So, but they weren't worried about that. They were worried about the peritonitis on her. And they said she wasn't going to make it. Well, she spent 4 weeks, well, whatever between Madison and the Royal. She got out of the vet school to go to the Royal. And she won the fraternity. She was second. So that's a will to live for a cow. And her heart works at 40% still. So that's a cow I got to be real careful. If it's a hot day, she doesn't go out. She stays in, and she doesn't. If she gets a ball of calcium, it's under the skin, and it's real slow if it's in the vein, because I know I could drop her. So we just know that one day it's probably going to give on her, but that's the way it is. And so that's basically what I have to talk to you about. I was over in Japan, so I was lucky. I had these slides. I did this same topic, but it was like a 4-hour presentation. It was a lot more intense. I just kind of covered the main points with you guys, and for me, taking good care of the cows brings money back in your pocket. That's really what it's all about. Whether you milk 500 cows or you milk 30 cows or what your situation is, you take care of them, they're going to give it back to you. So that's what I have to say, and if anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to ask me anything, or if you want to do that at the end.
Take questions now.
Yeah, if there's any questions, somebody can ask me, or if they want to ask at the end, whatever. So, is there anybody with any questions? Yep.
How much beef pulp do you feed daily, Callum?
I feed dry beef pulp and dry pelleted, just because half the time I forget to soak it. So I just went on to the dry, and actually what I have is it's a strip cup, old strip cup, steel strip cup, and I give them one of those twice a day. And that's, the Jersey's got half and the Holstein's got a cup. And I know it's a little expensive, but boy, it's good feed. It really is. The cows perform well on it. And it's a little old fashioned, but when you're showing cows, I never have trouble turning my cows onto the feed at the show, because they get exactly what they get at home. So they get in there and they go ahead, they don't go back. And that's a nice part about feeding them that way at home for me. Any other questions? Yep.
Do you vaccinate anything?
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't touch on the herd health. Yeah, we vaccinate. Now we're a little more careful with a lot of these higher genomic animals. I have bulls doing AI, that we make sure I don't vaccinate even the recipients close to when they get the eggs or after they get the eggs until the calf, because I don't want to take any chance on the bulls. And so, but we do vaccinate the herd twice a year. I do train them on. Any other questions? Yeah.
For cow comfort, what size of stalls do you have? And
Yeah, that's something I went more in detail in Japan. On the end of the barn, I'll try to go back to where this cow here, that cow comfort for me is not too big a stall and not too small a stall. Too big a stall is as bad as too small, because cow comfort isn't cow comfort when they're laying in their own crap all the time. And to me, a big thing now is we tend to go almost too big with the stalls, and the cows can roam around, and then they crap, they lay in it, and they get mastitis. And so my father-in-law, John, he was always really picky about that. He said, don't make your stalls too big, but don't make them too small. So this cow stall on the end here is it's 6 foot 2 long, 6 feet 2 inches long. It's 5 foot wide. The first 8 stalls, the big cows, are 5 foot wide, but the head rail, when I built the barn, goes in all the way down. So on the end of the barn, they're 5'7", 5'6", 5'7" for the 2-year-olds, and at the top end it's 6'1". It's all built in the head rail. So the bigger cows stay on this end, work their way down to the smaller 2-year-olds, and that works really, really well. I'll just try to get a picture here. There must be something in the barn that I can show you. Maybe not. No, I guess there isn't. But the right at the far end, here, I'll show you here. Right down at that far end, see the feed alley's wider at this end, and it gets narrower or it gets narrower at this end and wider as it gets to the bottom, because the head rail goes in just a bit, and that works really well. If I got a 2-year-old that's getting dirty, I move her down below. She stays clean, and she's not, and her legs are good, everything's fine. And to be honest with you, my Jersey stalls are only, those stalls there are only like, the Jersey stalls on the left are only 5 foot long and 4 foot wide. And I quite often have Holstein 2-year-olds in there, big 2-year-olds, and I have never had a problem. They stay fine because I got the bedding pad. But that's a little extreme, that's a little small. Jerseys get along great in those stalls. But to me, the feet of the cow should be right there. The pipe's right there, the feet right there. That's where they should be. The manure goes there. The feet are here, the manure goes there, they sleep in it, they got mastitis, they got problems. So that's the secret. If you're building a barn, in my mind, don't go so big with the stalls that they got a foot right here between the gutter and their legs, because you're going to be all day long just going around, scraping them down, trying to keep them clean. And it's a thing that all of us have done. We've all made our stalls. Some guys have made the stalls big, and some of the barns they can't change it. It's hard to change. So that's something that we feel works really well at home, and everything works good with the stalls. That was something when I built the barn I was real picky on, and my father-in-law was always in my ear. John was like, get those stalls right, because he was a big believer in that. And I'm a big believer in the bedding keeper underneath, because boy, those cows' legs, you can see the legs, there's no blemishes on the cows. And for us in our situation, that works well. Any other questions? Yeah?
With, you have quite a high production, do you have problems with cows leaking? And if you do, how do you keep your somatic cell?
Only in the flushing. The leaking, we don't really have. I mean, sometimes you get cows that leak. I mean, you'll get ones that are leakers. That's no fun. So I keep lime in the barn, and I'll put lime underneath the straw every day for the ones who do leak, just to keep it dry as I can. But if I get a real bad leaker, they'll be in the box stall, because at least they're not going to be consistently laying in the same spot. And when you're flushing cows, that's when you get the trouble with leaking. I find I do something different, and maybe it's wrong, I don't know, but those flush cows, if they don't already get oxytocin, I start them on oxytocin 2 weeks before the flush. I work them off at 2 weeks after. My cows sail right through the flush, no troubles. And they don't have the same trouble leaking, because they're not holding their milk when you milk them, then drop it, they clean out, and it eliminates a lot of trouble. So the cows we're flushing, we'll basically put them on it for 2 weeks before, work them off at 2 weeks after. And then they're fine till we flush them again. And that's really helped me in my situation with the show cows not having trouble with mastitis or a problem, because they're holding their milk from the hormones. And that's something that's real important. And one other thing that I didn't touch, that for you guys at home, something that we put in our barn when we built it was a system for stray voltage. And boy, am I glad I spent the $10,000 to do that, because I live up on a mountain and there's a lot of ledge, a lot of rock. And I'll go to farms and they'll say, we can't get any embryos from these cows. We got mastitis in all the cows. So the one guy said, you better have them come in and check for stray voltage, because I looked at his cows, and every tail was switching like this. When you look at the cows standing, you got stray voltage, every cow's tail is going back and forth. And he had terrible stray voltage, so he spent $10,000 in the system to filter to keep it out, and his cows are doing well. So there's something, if any, you're having troubles with cows that are consistently mastitis or breeding problems. It's terrible. Stray voltage, you won't get cows in calf if they get stray voltage. So that's something we put in, and we're really glad we did, because I have a meter that shows me every day where it's trying to get in the barn. I can tell how much stray voltage is trying to get in. So it helps the cows perform. And that's just a little something for somebody who might be having a problem at home. Maybe it's good to check that out. Any other? Yep.
How many embryos are you averaging?
We were averaging 12, 13 good eggs a flush. Now we do more virgin heifers. It's probably 9 or 10 a flush, good eggs. inception, where this winter was really good. We averaged 87% up to now on frozen eggs, 85% on fresh eggs. We did better on our frozen. I don't know why, but it's just the way it worked. But at one time, we were up over 13 eggs average a cow. But I find doing more heifers, you don't get the same number of eggs quite often. You might get 5 or 6, so it brings it down a little. And you got cows that will flush, and you got cows that just won't flush. I mean, it's genetics too. I mean, when I used to own Kingstead of Dean, my daughter, which was a 2-year-old, brought her home, flushed her, she gave me 36 number 1 eggs. And 1 flush, and I sold that cow. Probably the worst thing I ever did. I should have hung on, just how she did for everybody after. And but that family, if you got one from the Adine family, they flush. It's amazing. All the ones I've had flush. Everything off that family flushes. So it seems to me a lot of times these flush cows that work well, it goes hand in hand in the family. Some cows might give you 2 or 3, and their daughters will do the same sometimes. It just seems to me it can be a little bit genetics there too. Any other questions?
Just on that, you buy a lot of recipients in, like you treat them
Well,
like the rest of your
we
heifers,
used to,
or-
yeah, we used to buy a lot in, and actually, I used to keep them at Alan Barr, a friend of ours, Ayrshire fella, that was retired. He used to keep 30 heifers for me all the time over there in the winter time. And Alan's not doing it anymore, so we don't have the facility for the heifers. And then a couple winters I rented barns and kept them. Well, now, the way it's going, we're doing more in vitro than we are putting fresh eggs in. And so I've got I think we got 50 calves on the ground at Transova, and we got another 50 coming by June. So we got a lot of animals we're gonna have to turn over and sell, but we've been doing that route now just because of I hate having to fool with all I like to get a live calf home and fool with the recipient. But we do keep 40 of our own recipients at home, and they're housed with our show heifers run with them. They run right with them out behind they get the same feed basically, and they'll get baleage, and I find that doesn't hurt them to conceive as long as you're not radical in changing them. When you're flushing, consistency is everything. Don't be radical at changing everything around the week of the flush. If you're gonna change them 3 weeks before the flush. If you got a cow that you want to get her on dry hay, don't do it 2 days before you start the shots. Get her 2-3 weeks before, start her on that program so her system has time to adapt. And the same with the recipient. If your recipients are on a certain feeding, their heats are regular, don't change it. It'll work fine as long as you're not radical with the change when you do it. Yep.
In your calf program, what kind of a calf program do you have? Like percent protein in your calf starter?
Yeah, well, I used to always feed whole milk to the calves, honestly. But now that we've got bulls going to AI, we don't. Because if you got a cow with leukosis, happens to give it to the bull. I mean, it can happen. We've had it happen. Red Burst was raised on whole milk, and he went down leukosis on his last test at AI, so he went to the US. So I changed a milk replacer at that time. So all the calves are on milk replacer now. And I find it works well. I had a little trouble adapting to get them to grow quite as well, but now I seem to have it down where they do as well on it. And they get a free choice extra vo from Purina calf starter. It's like a 22% protein, and they have that free choice from about 4 days on. And once they get on to at 6 weeks, I'm trying to get the calf off the milk replacer. I used to go for 3 months. Now at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, they're off. I got them off and on water because I find they jump on the grain so much quicker and they take off. They grow quicker for me. The milk calves I used to feed so long, the milk would grow, but they'd they'd stay thick for so long. And these ones are dairier and they're growing and they're going. 2 weeks when you wean them, they look tough, and then they seem to go. So I get them. By 2 months, I try to have them off the milk replacer and on the grain and a little bit of hay. Not a lot of hay, just a little bit of hay. And at 4 months, they're on to a starter. It's called it's an 18%. And with a little top dressing for the special ones, for the show heifers or the ones that want to grow real good, they get a little 40% top dressing on top. So I'll separate them into another pen when they get that. And they always got, at that age, free choice, first cut hay. I like first cut hay. I really like the first cut to develop the frames on. Any other questions?
Just one more, you travel a lot with those cows, like, to the shows, like, just where you're situated,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
what
like
kind of
Madison's a
care,
good.
what kind of care you give them, like, when you're,
Yeah, well, Madison's a good 30 hours, by the time we milk them on the truck a few times, and, I guess I don't push it. A lot of guys want to get to Madison, milk once, I'll milk 3 times. For me, the cows get there better. The truck stop, we'll feed them, just like at the show. We'll milk them, let them lay down for an hour or two while we eat. We don't care if we're there first, we just want the cows to get there good. And that's, to me, that's so important. I have better luck trucking my cows tied in the pop. I tie them up just like at the show, side by side. And if I got cows I'm trucking, I'll tie the same cows that are tied beside each other at home. There'll be less fighting going on. If they're used to that cow, quite often I'll put them together on the truck, and I know they won't be fighting and carrying on. And the heifers will let them loose in pens up in the top of the pop. And just feed them hay and throw a little grain in on the road and some water. But the cows, we really try to take good care, clean, sanitary milking equipment. Wash. Hopefully you got truck stops to work with you and let you milk them on the road and take good care of them. So it's important. It makes all the difference. When you can truck in, like to show as far as Madison, and your cows haven't had a hard trip, it makes your job so much easier. The Royal's not bad. We milk and go, and we're there, and we're able to unload them and milk them in the barn. So it's, but when you're going over those 10 hours, 12 hours, I don't like to let a cow go over 10, 12 hours in the truck. I'll milk them. I don't like letting them go 16, 17 hours. I try to milk them out. Even if it takes 3 extra hours before I get there, I'd rather do that. We've all had experiences of cows blowing their udders on a truck, so it's, I mean, cows that are milking a lot, bouncing on the road, you're better to keep the udders empty as you can. So. Yep.
Just a quick question, Callum. You were saying that you're 50,000 Transoba. It sounds to me like the Transoba is going bigger than your milk truck.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy right now. And but a lot of these animals, I think I've had 10 bulls go into AI this year, and we got a bunch of contracts and a bunch of bulls coming on. We just had 10 come back to the last round, and 7 of them are sold. So I think that's going to come back to me in the end. That'll. I got partners on the genomic ones, and they're big gamblers, and they like to go that way. And so it's tough. I mean, for sure, not everybody can do it, but to me, I can see that it's going to be all right because there's some awful good stuff coming along, and I really like the calves we're getting. So.
So, for a second, is your cattle sales bigger on the genomic side or on the show side?
Last year, I probably was still bigger on the show side last year. This year, it'll be the genomic side. Because for me, I'll concentrate more on that this year, on the genomics part of it. And but last year, I still had a lot of sales in the show cattle that were real good sales. And we take care of those cows because that's what we want to do. At the end of the day, there's some of them that'll never be sold, but there's some that we turn them over, and that's our business. And we just sold one that broke our heart the other day. We sold our milk and yearling Jersey that won the Royal and won Madison. She was unanimous all Canadian, unanimous all American. She sold. So we're sad, but it's you got to do that. It helps pay the bills. So she's going down to the U.S. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.